When you want to license a song for sync, there are two licenses you need to acquire. So one is for the master recording, and that's called the master side of the license. And then there is a separate license for the underlying composition. They sometimes call it the sync license, which is confusing, but it is the sync side, which represents the publishing side. So you'd have to go to the publisher for those rights. And if an artist is self-published, then you go to the artist for those rights, and then whoever owns the master recording, whether it's a record label or if it's an artist who owns their own masters, that is a separate right that you have to license. So there are two sides, master and publishing. If you are a self-published artist, meaning you don't have a publisher on your team, you don't have a record label maybe either, you own everything, all of the copyrights yourself, then when you register your song with SOCAN, you are 50% of the registration is for the writer side and 50% is for the publisher side. So if you are a self-published artist, you'll just have 100% of that pie. And if you sign a publishing deal, then you will likely split the 50% of the pie with the publisher, or anywhere between, say 10% to 25% of that will go to the publisher, and you'll get the other 75% of the pie. But if you're an independent artist, you are 100%. You are already a publisher. As soon as you write a song, you own your own publishing. And then on the master side, if you're making your own recordings in your home studio and self-releasing, then you are the record label. If you sign a label deal and someone else is putting your music out for you, if they have paid for the recording, sent you into the studio, they are the master owner. I will say, if you're using samples in your recordings, you have to get clearances on those. So those are master recordings owned by someone else, and the underlying composition as well in those recordings. So if you are someone who's making beats and you want to sample other recordings, you have to get legal clearances from those record companies and those publishers who represent the compositions and the recordings that you're using as a sampler. Metadata is really important because when you're pitching songs to music supervisors, they might not listen to it right away. They might store it in their database and they may pull it back up for certain searches, but what if they land on your song and it's the perfect song for what they are working on, but then they can't see who to contact, who owns all the rights? Is it a one-stop clearance? Do they have to go to a label and a few publishers, or maybe just one publisher? So this is the most important information that you could attach to your songs, really, when you're pitching for sync. So attaching metadata to an MP3 is quite easy. It's very similar to if you've ever used iTunes and you click Control-I on your song, there are little fields that you can enter data into. And so you'll be able to enter the composer information, and you put all of the writers in there, all their names. You would put the publishing companies, if the writers are published. Maybe some of them are, maybe some of them aren't. Put contact information for everybody who can clear the publishing rights, and contact information for everyone who can clear the master side. So that's the recording. Another thing that's great about metadata is you can attach, you can tag words in there. So you can say, this is the genre, this is the mood, these are the BPMs for that song. You could put lots of detailed information like instruments that are used in the song. You could put in lyrical themes or lyrics so that when a music supervisor is searching that song, they might type in something like Jingle Bells, or, we need a Bollywood song. Then that would help them find the song faster in their database. One of the best relationships we have is with music supervisors because we are a trusted source. They know that we know who owns all the rights to the songs that we put out. And they will often send briefs for shows or projects that they're working on and say, here's the show, here's the type of music we're looking for, here are the characters, here are the settings and different locations that they often go to that might have music playing in the background. So they reach out to us as a trusted source as well as publishers to say, hey, I'm looking for music in this genre for this project. Do you have anything in your catalog that might work? And so we actively and proactively pitch to projects like that for ads, branding, gaming, TV, film. It's just really great to have that kind of trust where they know that we're not going to send them a song that we can't clear. A brief is what a music supervisor will put together. Not all of them use them, but it's really helpful when they do. We get a lot of briefs for ads where the music supervisor will explain what the ad is about. They'll say, hey, I'm conducting a music search. It's for this product. This is what's happening in the commercial, and we're doing however many cut downs or whatever the format is. They'll tell you which media it's going to, and then they will sometimes send a picture through as well to say, here's what it looks like if you have any songs that you think would fit this vibe. But those briefs are not something that they circulate to everybody. It's not really for the general public. It's really just sort of for their trusted circles. And so it's great as an artist, if you have a team, if you have a label and a publisher on board, often they have those relationships with music supervisors from around the world who will send their briefs in, and then you have the opportunity to pitch on that. At Six Shooter, we have a sync department, and so when we receive briefs from music supervisors, we will go through our database and we will search what songs may fit that brief, and then we'll put it together in a playlist and we will send it off to the music supervisors. So it's really great to have somebody on your team who can pitch for sync on your behalf. I mean, artists can do it themselves as well. But it may be difficult to get the music supervisor's attention if you're just sort of a solo artist writing a personal email to a professional contact. Once you have a team, once you have a label or a publisher pitching on your behalf, it's just a more professional pitch. Basically, we have the relationships with music supervisors where I feel we can sort of accurately guess what they're looking for, and also just not pitch songs that aren't going to work. We try to really listen to what a music supervisor is looking for and use our best judgment and pitch to the brief, basically. The music supervisor will either let you know ahead of time, this is the fee that we can offer, or they may say this is negotiable. Like, you may get a quote request. This often happens at the label. I'll get a quote request saying, hi, we'd like to use this Tanya Tagaq song and this is the project. How much is this going to cost us? And then I will go back and forth and negotiate with them. I'll say, well, where's it going to air? Are you putting it up on socials? How long do you want this term to be for? And are there any renewal periods? So there are lots of little details that you have to go back and forth on, and then you agree upon a fee. So basically, I think if you're not confident negotiating your own fee, that's where having a team is really helpful. So having a manager, having a publisher or a label who's very experienced, we can look back on all the precedents that have been set. We can say, oh, we've licensed a song to that show before for that network. We can see what the license fee was. And then we have that frame of reference to know what fair market value would be for that song. MFN is a term that means most favored nations. So that means that whatever the other person's getting paid, we're getting the same fee. So on the label side, if I'm negotiating a sync fee, I may include MFN with publishing beside the fee, meaning that whatever you've agreed on for the sync side or whatever you're paying the publisher for the composition, we need to get the same fee. So it's just making sure that everyone's being fairly compensated. There may be some instances where you can't do MFN. For example, if an artist on my label records, does a cover song that's written by someone else and it's a huge hit and it's a really well-known song, then the budget they may have for the publishing of that song, say if it's in a commercial, will be much larger than maybe what they have for the master recording. So so sync placements are not always MFN, but I think it's always best to try to go MFN if you can. We always recommend, and we make it a delivery item actually, that artists, when they're recording an album, always get the engineer to bounce down an instrumental, because it's very difficult to place or even pitch a song for sync placements if there's no instrumental. Generally, the editors will need an instrumental version so that they can play with it. They can drop the vocals out if there's dialogue happening over it. Some music supervisors won't even listen to your pitch if you don't include the instrumentals. So it's really important to have those as a delivery item. A lot of artists have, you know, a backlog of albums or songs that they didn't get instrumentals for. So I always tell them to go back to those producers, track them down, make sure you have those in your pitch catalog. And if you're being approached by a sync agent or a publisher, they are definitely going to want to make sure, and they're going to want to know that you have instrumentals available to be used. And it's the same with stems. Stems are sometimes asked for if you're doing a trailer or a commercial where they really just want to take certain elements of the song, drop certain elements out, bring them back in. It's something that the sound editor really needs to work with. So I always recommend having stems available as well. So that's something to think about when you're in the recording process. Stems are basically breakdowns of your song. So you might have like the vocals separately, and then you'll have different instrumental elements broken down separately so that you can isolate parts of the song. The legal paperwork, if you're an independent artist, it's very important to follow up after you've approved a sync license or you know that it has landed. Make sure that you're getting the paperwork back from the music supervisor, because that's where it will stipulate how long they have the song for, how much they paid, when it expires, when it could renew. It's always good to have that legal documentation to refer back to in case any issues arise. My best piece of advice for an artist who's starting out is to take everything as far as you can on your own. You know, try to get traction, try to build a following, work hard on your socials, work hard on your music, just create. Keep developing your songwriting. You know, the first few songs that you write aren't necessarily your best, you know, maybe they are, but you've got to keep pushing yourself to create and develop and get better, and take every job that you do as far as you can. Be your own manager, be your own publisher, be your own label. But when it starts to feel like it's too much and you're, you know, hopefully making a certain amount of money where it's now attractive for a manager to come on board, that's the time to start thinking about building your team and get a manager who can help you look for a label, who can also pitch you to music publishers, and get a booking agent so that you're not doing it all yourself. At some point, hopefully you've built your team and you can focus on the creative, and you've got to build your team of people that you trust, who are not going to rip you off, who really understand who you are as an artist and a creator, but also just as a person, what your lifestyle is. And maybe you have kids, maybe you want to tour, You know, there are a lot of things to figure out in the long path of a career, but try to pick partners wisely and build a team that is really going to be there for you throughout your whole career. I think one of the most important things to remember as an artist when you're starting out is this industry is very small. So you're going to run into the same people over and over again. You don't want to burn too many bridges because somebody who was working over here is now working over there, and now they're a music supervisor, or they're now, you know, an executive director of something, and you'll be amazed at, you know, someone you had a fight with when you were in a band, you know, when you were in high school, and then you don't talk to each other anymore, and then like flash forward 20 years later, oh, here we are, well, we're all in the same industry. I think just, you know, conduct yourself wisely, be a good person, like just, you know, try to move through your career with dignity and grace and be a good person and treat everyone respectfully. And you'll find as you get older, some of the last people standing are going to be those excellent human beings who have just, you know, really been good people and worked really hard all the way through. That's my advice.